Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
I understand that your mother wanted you to be a doctor and your father always wanted you to be a lawyer. What were the other professions which were in your mind before you took up the profession of law?
Frankly, when I was in school, probably I was thinking of medicine or law, because my mother's brother was a very successful doctor in Mumbai, and my father himself was a successful lawyer. So either one of them I was thinking. But when I came to college level, I was playing serious hockey, and I was representing the state of Mysore as well as University of Mysore in hockey. Those were the days India was right on top of the Olympics in hockey. So I was seriously thinking of becoming a professional hockey player if I could. But destiny didn't allow me to do that. I did my intermediate. I'm from the old batch of 2-year intermediate, 56, 58. I studied intermediate, then I finished and did my BSc degree in Central College. I represented St. Joseph's College, Central College, Law College in hockey. And two of the colleges, Law College and Central College, I represented as a captain also. When I finished my intermediate, I got an opportunity of, I finished my BSc, I got an opportunity of going to Bangalore Medical College. I joined the college, but it was not regular college studies. There used to be a pre-professional course for students who came from 1 year PUC. Then they go to pre-professional course. Thereafter, they go to the medical college or engineering college. So I got into that this thing. I captained the Bangalore Medical College for 1 year, but somehow I didn't like the atmosphere because most of my classmates were very young, whereas I had completed about 20 years by then and all. So I told my parents that I don't think I can continue in medicine. My father said, "Why don't you join law?" So ultimately, I joined law because I couldn't get what I wanted to do, rather. I have no regrets. I've been a destiny's child. My life has been always led by some other forces other than myself.
Sir, hockey is not that common in our region of Bangalore. Maybe even in Bangalore. How did you get attracted towards hockey? Actually?
Bangalore, it was very, very popular because almost all industries, either central government owned, state government owned, and other private clubs there. There were nearly about 15, 16 clubs were there. There was about 6, 7 tournaments all over throughout the 12 months in a year. Then we used to go out and play in Mumbai, Calcutta, Raipur in Madhya Pradesh, Madurai, and even went to Sri Lanka, then called Ceylon, to play hockey. So hockey was a very popular game at that point of time.
Sir, your father, Justice K.S. Hegde, was known for his straight talk, and he was a well-known personality. What is one of the main traits that you have imbibed in your life?
He was absolutely honest, and he wanted the children also to be honest. Very often he used to tell us that I'll give you enough education, enough to eat, but I won't be leaving anything behind when I die. Therefore, you have to find your own profession. And from his lifestyle, we imbibed whatever he was doing. And I think today it's considered to be one of the best values a person can imbibe. He was never corrupt. He never made money other than his legitimate income. And he was proud of that. And that's the way we were grown up. We have seen him live an ordinary life. So we have also followed him.
Sir, because as a student of NMA MIT, I used to say Hegde sir, Vinay Hegde sir. So this is an inquisitive thing that, sir, how you and he, when you were children, did you have some fights? As kids we fight. So can you share some instances?
Look, Vinay was hardly a year older than me. My parents had 6 quick children. In 7 years we were 6 children. There was hardly any difference in age group. Since we were almost the same age and together, we were good friends. At the same time, we had childhood mischiefs going around and all, and there used to be fights and all. I always used to say that I liked dressing up, whereas he just didn't care about dressing up. So I used to iron my clothes and keep it for myself, and all, but which you take away and wear it, and all. Then I had to again do the ironing for some other shirt. This was a regular affair between them. Otherwise, we had no other difference of opinion. Like in childhood years, while playing a game, we have our differences of opinion. So we shout at each other. But next minute you forget it.
Sir, I often see you well dressed. Usually, I've seen in a couple of interviews you are in black most of the time. Might be the both the trousers and the shirt in black. So, any special specific this thing?
No. Right from the childhood, I liked bright colors. It could be black, it could be yellow, it could be dark red. I still remember when I must have been about 8-9 years old, when my mother bought me a bush shirt full of film star pictures in it and all. I don't think anybody else in the house would have worn it except myself. I liked wearing it, and it was depicting an old cinema movie, this thing, Albela. There used to be a funny actor called Go. His pictures were there in that bush shirt. I liked it, and I was wearing it.
Sir, I understand that you are very, you are smart looking, but those days you were young. And when you got into a love marriage, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
How did your family accept it? And did it break many hearts?
No, I don't think I was not a Romeo. I did meet this girl a long time back, and I think my parents indirectly knew that I was going to marry her. So when I told my father, he had no objection at all. He said, okay, it's left to you to do that. And my in-laws celebrated the wedding, and my wife came and stayed with my parents. When my father resigned and came back to Bangalore, for nearly 2-3 years, we were staying together. They had no difference of opinion whatsoever.
Sir, after Justice Hegde, Justice K.S. Hegde retired, he came back to your native village, and he used to stay there.
He built a small house.
There. So what was the reason that he came back, and did he love the scenic beauty there?
I think my father basically was a rural person. Those circumstances gave him a lot of opportunity of moving from Karkala to Mangalore, Mangalore to Chennai, then called Madras, then right to Bangalore. And he became a High Court judge here. Then he became the first Chief Justice of Delhi High Court, so he had to move back to Delhi. I say back to Delhi because in 1952, he was a member of the first Raj Sabha. For nearly 7 years, he was a member of Raj Sabha when he was elevated to the Delhi High Court. Then second time in 1966, he went to the Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court. Then he got elevated as a Supreme Court judge. In 1973, he resigned because he was superseded from becoming the Chief Justice of India. Then he came and settled down in Bangalore. Then 77 general elections came. The opposition parties wanted him to contest in Bangalore. So he contested election in Bangalore. He won the election. And he went back to Delhi again as a member of parliament, then became a speaker there. Around about 80, he came back from Delhi, and he was planning to go back to the village and settle down rather than spend his time in Bangalore. So he went to Retd, built a small cottage there, and he and my mother lived there. That's how I think ultimately he wanted to lead his life.
Sir, you said that he won from Bangalore, and see those times I think people recognized the merit, and he won.
Yeah.
So how do you see the same situation now?
77 general election was an exception to the normal rule of political elections and all. Political elections continues in various manners and all. It could be caste based, it could be money purchased votes, or it could be the popularity of a political party. Individuals' merit had little say in the matter. 77 election, of course, was a very highly fought election because a new political party came to picture, and the bitterness of emergency also was a cause for the defeat of the Congress party there. And of course, my father, they must have thought he is the right person to be chosen from Bangalore, because Bangalore South constituency was a highly literate constituency. People were aware of their responsibilities and electoral responsibilities and duty also. So my father could defeat a former Chief Minister of Karnataka, Mr. Hanuman, and he went to Delhi. I think at that point of time, apart from personal credibility and this thing, there was a huge anger against political Congress party, which also helped the Janata Party to win here. But then you remember one thing, in South India that way was not there. In South India, that is from state of Andhra Pradesh, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Karnataka, only 3 people were elected. Karnataka had 27 seats, but only 2 were elected from Bihar. And Mr. Nanjegowda from Hassan and my father from Bangalore. Like in Kerala, when Ramachandran was elected, but all of the seats in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, Karnataka went to Congress. In spite of that pro-Congress view, these three people won. That's quite a creditable thing.
Yes. Now coming back to your story, sir. Like when you were offered for the position, offered a position as a judge in the Supreme Court of India, you were a celebrated lawyer, famous lawyer. So was it a tough decision for you to accept the offer?
Tough in the sense, well, ever since I started independent practice, my practice has been good. Monetarily, it was very attractive thing. But then I did accept certain positions because of the status of that position, like Advocate General. These posts didn't pay any money, but some money it paid, but not as much as a private practitioner. Then I became Additional Solicitor General. I became a Solicitor General. These are posts of pride. You can hold it in pride in a profession, a legal profession. Then when I was offered the judgeship, there are two things always matter. One is that judgeship's post should be very attractive in the sense it is a highly respected post, it should be there. And it also should pay some remuneration for your lifestyle and other things. Now, when I was offered the judgeship, my practice was very good. My income was nothing compared to what a judge would get, So I myself and my wife, we started developing an interest in traveling all over the world, and in style we used to travel and everything, at least 2 times or 3 times in a year whenever the courts were on holiday. Now becoming a judge, that was difficult because your income was limited. A carry-home salary of a judge in 2099, let me put it that way, was about 35,000 rupees. 50,000 was the salary, 15,000 was deducted. So my mother wanted me to accept the judge post. When she asked me, I told my mom, I'm getting only 35,000 rupees. How can I manage my life? She told me, your father was getting as a Supreme Court judge only 4,000 rupees. And he was managing the entire family. 6 children were studying and looked after education and other things. What's so great about it? For 35,000 I can't manage? So I said, okay, and that's okay. Then I said, I'm not going to become the Chief Justice of India. For that, she told me, look, your father was supposed to have become a Chief Justice of India, but he was superseded. So what's so great about being a Chief Justice of India? I had no other answer to give to her. I accepted the judgeship and I became a judge, and I have absolutely no regret. Only regret was that she passed away 20 days after I took charge as a judge of the Supreme. I wanted her to leave some more to watch me function as a judge, but that didn't happen.
So they say that your judgments were taken as templates. They were so well written. So how is that you develop that skill of writing judgments? They say that that's also an art.
I don't consider myself as a great judge in that sense of the term. My English was good, so I could convey whatever my feelings in a language which I was fluent in. So I wrote my judgment, but they were nothing compared to some literary people who have written their judgments in the Supreme Court. I was just mentioning the facts of the case and the decision that I take and the reason for taking my decision. Beyond that, there was no flashy languages or something deep into jurisprudential thinking. No, I was just an ordinary judge, and I did my ordinary job as was required in my post.
So any of your judgments which you would always remember? Any one case?
Yeah, I would say there was one case pertaining to a politician from Bihar. His name is Papu Yadav. He was an accused person in a murder case where a communist leader, CPM leader, Ranjit Sarkar, was murdered for political reasons. He was in jail in Patna, a jail called Behur Jail. He was politically very influential person, and he managed to get a transfer from Behur Jail for treatment in All India Institute of Medical Science in Delhi. But he was misusing that privilege. The reports were that every morning he would have breakfast and go out and come back late in the night to sleep in the hospital. This was conveyed to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, saying he is misusing the facilities. He is supposed to be in jail, incarceration, but he is moving freely like any other person. So Chief Justice posted that matter before my bench, of which I was a member. And we issued notice to the Director Ains. He said, yes, he is misusing the facilities, we couldn't do anything. Then we issued notice to Pappu Yadav, and we didn't agree with the arguments his lawyers submitted, and all. We transferred him back to Behur Jail. There, one day, he was found canvassing for a political personality in a place called Madhyapur, which is about 40-50 miles from Patna. And that photograph was sent to our bench. And when he saw that, we had instructed the Behur Jail not to release him for any purposes without the permission of the Supreme Court. But this was contrary to the directions of the Supreme Court. When we asked the superintendent of the jail, he said, "Sir, there was a body warrant from a session judge in a place called Madhyapura, so we have to take him there." There he managed to get out of custody and go and do the election campaign. So we issued notice to him why he should not be transferred to some jail other than in Bihar. Big lawyers came and argued this and that, and I think we didn't agree. And we ultimately, we didn't send him to South India because his wife begged of us not to send him that far. So we transferred him to Tihar jail in this thing. That is a little funny situation, and I still remember it because the manner in which the arguments were addressed, and ultimately we did something which I thought was necessary to teach a lesson to some of these people.
Sir, you had an extensive 25,000 pages report regarding the Bellary and other mining episode which was submitted, but it was not accepted here in Karnataka. But the Supreme Court took the Green Bench took the cognizance of that report, and they took action. How was your feeling then?
I was very satisfied, though I was disappointed in the first instance with the government of Karnataka because they just pretended to take notice of it, but nothing was done. But the Honorable Supreme Court in public interest litigation took cognizance of that and formed a committee called CEC, Centrally Empowered Committee, and asked them to go and examine and see whether whatever stated in my report is correct or not. CEC reported back to Supreme Court saying, yes, it is all true. Then they banned mining in Karnataka. After some years, they said, okay, we'll permit the mining to go on in some category of mines, and allotment should be done by auction, not by your choice and other things. So it was going on like that, but now today CBI has taken over. They are closing cases one by one, they are closing, And I read in today's paper that the government of Karnataka is not satisfied with it, and also they are going to appoint another SIT to find out what is done by CBI is correct or not. So anyway, by and large, it had its own effect in the mining in the state of Karnataka, because mining was stopped for 3-4 years. It was stopped, now slowly it is being done in a manner which is contemplated under the Act. I hope this will be done. It was atrocious. From 2000 to 2010, Government of Karnataka got 27 rupees for 1 metric ton of iron ore. That very same 1 metric ton of iron ore was exported to China in 2000 to 2010 at the rate of 6,500 to 7,000 rupees. Look at the cheating that was being done. And mining is controlled by 5 departments. Mining department, forest department, transport department, police department, commercial tax department. In spite of all these departments, the government allowed this to continue at the rate of 27 rupees. Billions and billions of tons of iron ore has been excavated, exported, giving Karnataka government only 27 rupees. That too 27 rupees for a counted metric ton. A single rear axle vehicle which has 4 tires at the back and 2 tires in the front can carry 15 tons. They used to carry 25 tons, and for the 10 tons they were not paying 27 rupees.
You want that?
And there were multiple axle vehicles, 12, 24, 32 tires, long vehicles. They carry up to 50-60 tons officially. But in fact they was carrying about 100 tons. This was a very unfortunate situation. The money that they could have had legitimately, government of Karnataka could have done a lot to the people of Karnataka if they wanted to do it.
So when you prepared that report, you had taken the support of 5 forest officers. How could you identify the best among the...
I identified only one person, Dr. U.V. Singh. He is a metallurgist, but he took part in competitive examination and was allotted to Indian Forest Service. A fantastic officer. I can never forget the services rendered by him. I gave him free hand. I said, you choose whom you want. I will get the government to allot it to your payment. So he did that. And this team collated 4 lakh bank accounts, which was mischievously being collected. It was being collected as almost blackmailing collection. In some place it was deposited in one bank in X's name, then it goes to another bank in B's name, goes to another bank in C's name, and then ultimately comes to the person for whom it was collected. And these 4 officers collated all these banking accounts and all, and found out the money that was deposited in the A bank is the same money that came to Mr. D account and all. And D was a very powerful person. So we could prove it that who was actually involved in illegal mining, because they were all very powerful people, big companies, big individuals, politically powerful people were there. But these officers never bothered about it.
Sir, in a talk show, Weekend with Ramesh, you had expressed very high regard to our former Prime Minister Sri Deve Gowda ji. You have also seen our former CM Sri Kumar Swamy ji. So how do you compare their working styles?
Well, the style is the same. These political personalities, when they come to a certain level, they have their own style of functioning, which is almost similar from party to party. There is hardly any difference with it. But in Mr. Deve Gowda, I did find a man who, agricultural family man becoming the Prime Minister, it's not a small achievement, it's a big achievement. And he did discharge his duties, keeping in mind the love for the state. I really appreciate. Kumar Swamy is yet to, at that point of view, now he must have matured in the thing. He also did his bit, but I named him in my mining report.
You had worked with Sri Arvind Kejriwal ji also during the Anna movement. Are you still in touch? And how do you feel? How is he functioning now?
Look, India Against Corruption, which was started by Mr. Anna Hazare, was a fight against corruption. Means it's a fight against people in power, political power or executive power. It is against them. Basically, our fight was against all political parties which were considered to be corrupt. Now, in that process, suddenly a group, part of the group became political. Now, when it came to me, when they asked me to join them, I said, sorry, I am away from politics and I will not join. So they formed a separate political party, which is in power now in one of the states. But that was not the object of India Against Corruption. India Against Corruption was to fight against corruption. I am of the view that as it stands presently, it's very difficult to be honest in politics. There are various demands which are made, which ultimately leads the political personality towards corruption. It was not so earlier, but today, in my opinion, politics has become a profession. It was not a profession, it was a service. People were not there for making money. In the beginning stages, in the decade of 50, 60, 70, there was no salary. Actual expenses are paid. Today they are paid handsome salary, more than IAS, IPS officers, and maybe more than judges also. But still, what's happening there? We see a lot of corruption we see there. So I think it will take a long time to change this attitude of political thinking.
Sir, are you in touch with Mr. Kejriwal now?
No, I'm not in touch with him.
Sir, do you see Jan Lokpal Bill a reality, or how do you see it?
Jan Lokpal Bill, in effect, has been rejected by the government. Government has brought in its own version of Lokpal Bill in 2013, but the Lokpal institution has not yet been established. So there is no Lokpal in India today. A bill is there, which is a version of the ruling party at that point of time, and that has been passed in the parliament, but nobody is interested in creating the post.
So coming back to Karnataka, you have been telling that Lokayukta should be given the power to file FIR. So what does it mean actually?
It's like this.
For a common man's understanding.
You see, Karnataka Lokayukta has only 2 powers. One is grievance redressal, that is any person who is aggrieved by any order made by the government, instead of going to court, he can come to the Lokayukta, and Lokayukta can hold an inquiry. If his complaint is genuine, see that he gets the relief for that complaint and all. In that process, many things could be exposed. But the other jurisdiction of the Lokayukta is in regard to corruption. Now, in regard to corruption, under the Prevention of Corruption Act, there is a section which says any investigation under this act can be conducted only by a police officer not below the rank of a deputy superintendent of police. Lokayukta personally has no power to raid. It has to be done by the Lokayukta police. Now, there is little difficulty in controlling these officers at that point of time. When I came into this, that was my thinking, that some difficulties were there. So I did ask the government to give us the police pass so that we in suitable cases, even if the Lokayukta police does not want to file an FIR, we could then, as a Lokayukta, can file an FIR. But somehow the reason the court did not, the government did not grant it. But that grievance of mine, subsequently when I was working in the Lokayukta, disappeared because I had another officer, wonderful officer, who just retired as a DGIG, Rupakumar Datta, who was looking after the police job of the Lokayukta. He never hesitated to file FIRs against the biggest of the big people also. Could be ministers, chief ministers, IAS officers, MLAs. So I didn't have that grievance thereafter. I don't know what is happening now because the Lokayukta doesn't have the power under the Prevention of Corruption Act now. What is left of him is only look into the grievance redressal power.
So it's not that earlier Lokayukta?
No, I don't think it's the same as that.
So when you were the Lokayukta, so before becoming Lokayukta, I think you had handled during the emergency, you had handled cases for Vajpayee ji and Advani ji.
Yeah.
You are known to be close to them.
Yeah.
So when you became Lokayukta, you actually went against the government because of the corruption cases. Yeah. So how did it affect your relationship with them?
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. On the contrary, I resigned during my tenure in Karnataka Lokayukta because one of my officers was kept under suspension. I said, you can't keep him under suspension without consulting me. The government did not agree. Then I thought, if I can't protect my officers who have risked their future, professional future, then what's the use of my continuing the Lokayukta? So I resigned. Ultimately, Mr. Advani telephoned to me saying that withdraw your resignation, you're doing a good job, continue. So I told him, sir, how can I continue when my officers will have no confidence in me? I said, if that resignation is withdrawn by the government, I'll withdraw my resignation. That happened, that withdrew. I did meet Advani ji a couple of times thereafter, once when his wife passed away, and I have still the highest regard for him and all. Vajpayee ji was something different, not as close as Advani ji, but Vajpayee's time also, I think they did recognize me for having appeared for them when I was a lawyer during emergency. It was during Vajpayee's time that I became the Solicitor General of India. And it is during Ramakrishna Hegde's time, who was also a Retd in jail at that point in time, I became the Advocate General of State of Karnataka.
Sir, we'll come to a general topic. Like there's a lot of debate going on regarding nationalism, and some of them say that nationalism cannot be imposed. Singing of nationalism, singing of the national anthem, and so on. What's your take on that? Is it a media creation or?
No, I think I don't agree with the judgment of the Supreme Court that national anthem should be sung in theatres. Look, you can't force a man to do these things. Nationalism, there may be a nationalist in true sense of the word, but if you tell him to do this, and he may not like it. And national anthem is such an honor. People should sing it really with they say wanting to sing rather than being forced to sing. And I don't think the court should have gone to the extent of compelling people who go to see an entertainment to first stand up and listen to national anthem. Then you can force it to everybody and all. Morning you get up and stand up in the house and start singing national anthem. You can't assess nationalism by this type of imposition.
And one more issue is about the freedom of speech. Do you think that has it really been affected, or once again?
Look, I don't think these people who assert their right to freedom of speech really have read the right. To speak something and say that freedom of speech is one part of the fundamental right is only half truth. There is no fundamental right which is mentioned or enumerated in Article 19 which power is absolute. No. Article 19(6) says any one of the above rights can be reasonably restricted by a law to be made by the Parliament or the Assembly. Now there are already two laws in regard to freedom of speech. One is Section 124A of the Indian Penal Code, which speaks of sedation. The offense of sedition also will be committed if you talk against the nation. Now, you can't say I'll talk against the nation, but it's my freedom of speech. What happened in JNU, which opposition said it's a freedom of speech, you should listen to it and say whether it could be a freedom of speech. It is said that Hindustan, there are South Updayenge, name of the god is taken, I'm not mentioning that. हिंदुस्तान जब तक तेरा बर्बादी नहीं होगी, कश्मीर की आजादी नहीं होगी, हम जंग लड़ेंगे. अफजल गुरु हम शर्मिंदा है, तेरा कातिल अभी जिंदा है. What more can be less than sedition? Section 124 is active a long time back, much before our independence and all. It is clearly violated. But what did the opposition do? When Umar was arrested, all the opposition parties went and sat in JNU Maidan and started saying it is fundamental right of freedom of speech. Where is that such freedom of speech? They have not read Article 19(6). And there is another restriction on freedom of speech, defamation. Section 499 of the Indian Penal Code. You can't say I got a fundamental right of speech and abuse another person. So, fundamental right of freedom of speech is not absolute. It is controlled, by, at least in India, by two of the statutes, which is permissible under Article 19(6). So we should not think that every right is absolute right. You can't go and sit in somebody's house and say, I'll sit because I have a right to settle down under Article 19. No. There are restrictions on every one of the fundamental rights. And the word thing, just imagine, if a person has a fundamental right to speak and if he abuses me, then what happens to my fundamental right of medicine? So these people should realize when you assert your constitutional right, you should also think in terms of another man's constitutional right, and it may come in conflict. Merely saying you have a fundamental right, is absolute ignorance, I must say.
Sir, I would like request you to give a message to the youngsters regarding the value system, what they follow, regarding their understanding about nationalism and the freedom of speech combined together, so that they get the right perspective of what is it actually.
Basically, from my experience as Karnataka Lokayukta, I have come to the conclusion that the society in which we live has forgotten all the values which our elders established for peace in the society. Because of lack of values, there is conflict in the society today. There is a mad race to acquire wealth and a mad race to acquire power, because power begets wealth and wealth begets power. If you don't control this mad race, I think life is going to be extremely difficult. To control this madness, you got to inculcate two of the values. One is contentment in life, what we call tripti. If you don't have contentment in life, you get a disease called greed, for which there is no treatment, and you'll never ever be happy however much wealth you acquire. The second value you have to acquire is humanism. We are not born human beings. There is no species called human beings. We are born to a species called Homo sapiens. And in my opinion, even though you are not born as a human being, in the journey of your life, you acquire humanism, exhibit it, and die as a human being, then there is no better glory than that. Nationalism, yes, every person must have nationalism. But how you exhibit it is something different. As one of the Supreme Court judges recently mentioned, you can't wear your nationalism in your arms or in your shoulder. Nationalism should be left to a person to observe it in the manner that is observed. Of course, if you do something contrary to nationalism, that is not acceptable, that's not pardonable. Therefore, keep your nationalism to yourself. Exhibit it whenever it is necessary, but nobody can tell you that you should exhibit it the way they want you to tell you to exhibit it. Yeah, freedom of speech, I don't think in India there is an absolute freedom of speech at all. The freedom of speech, freedoms that is enumerated in Article 19 are called fundamental rights, but not absolute right. Because Article 19(6) empowers the Parliament or the state legislature to put such reasonable restriction as it thinks necessary. So far as freedom of speech is concerned, there are already two laws which controls the right of a person to speak in the manner he wants to speak. There is section 124A of the Indian Penal Code which controls sedation. Sedation is an offense against the nation. So people who speak against the nation, act against the nation, are violating section 124A. They can't say that I have a fundamental right, so I will go on criticizing the nation, I will commit offense of sedition. No, you can't do that. Similarly, there is another restriction on the fundamental right of freedom of speech, that is defamation. Section 499 of the Indian Penal Code. You can't just stand up and abuse somebody because you think you have a freedom of speech. He also has a freedom of speech. One freedom of speech of one person cannot conflict with the freedom of speech of another person. So don't be under the impression that any one of the fundamental rights enumerated in Article 19 are absolute right.
It was a great pleasure and privilege for me. My dream come true. Thank you so much, sir. It's indeed India, our prayer. Actually, we are proud that still we have people like you amongst us who will guide the next generations to come in the right path. Thank you so much, sir.
Wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, sir.